Banco Beverage. Proudly serving the Lehigh Valley for over 80 years. It's 80 years. Say it with me. 80 years. It's a long time. Over 30 plus breweries distributed, including Miller, Yuengling, Pabst, Guinness, Heineken, plus a generous variety of imported and specialty brands. They are located at Crackersport Road in Allentown, PA. Can't get any more local than that, Lehigh Valley. Banco Beverage is locally owned, operated since 1933. They have an exceptional team of staff dedicated to making their customers happy. If you're interested in having Banco be your purveyor for whatever bar or establishment you own, you can go to www.bancobeverage.com. I have the information in the ads as well, and I want to thank Banco for coming on and being a sponsor. Myself and Tony are working on some projects, and we are going to be bringing some really cool content, as well as Banco is going to be providing for a lot of the things that we do event-wise. So thank you, Banco, again. Thank you, Tony, and check out Banco Beverage. Giacomo's Italian Market. What an awesome relationship that has blossomed between Never Again Studio and Giacomo's Italian Market. We've been working with them with Studio Kitchen. We've been doing their Italian sausage and going to pop-ups with them. I love Sal. I love all the guys over there. It's always awesome collaborating. And you should go check them out. They got specialty Italian items. They're famous for the cheesesteak, the sausage. I can't even list everything because everything over there on that menu is fantastic. It's a home run. They are in Easton, PA, 700 Cattell Street. That's 700 Cattell Street in Easton, PA. They are over by College Hill. It's a dope area to check out. You need to go there. They got plenty of inside seating. They got all kinds of specialty Italian things off to the side, of pasta, vodka sauce. I usually just go there because I'm not making it as good as Sal. So I pick up my vodka sauce and, I say, what's up? We got some oils and all kinds of different things. But I can't say nothing but positive things over at Giacomo's. If you know them, you know them. If you don't know them, you're crazy and you need to get over there. That's 700 Cattell Street in Easton. That's Giacomo's Italian Market. Tell Sal what's up. The Curious Plantaholic, located in Nazareth and Clinton, New Jersey. The Nazareth location was opened first, and I met Jenny. We immediately hit it off. I knew we would start working on projects. She is the energy and the breath of fresh air that Nazareth needs. I started buying plants off of her, went down a rabbit hole. Now I got a bunch of plants I got to take care of. I'm trying my hardest. People are helping me. What an awesome shop for plants, retail. The energy in there is amazing. The employees in there are amazing. It's a plant and supply store focused on connecting with local communities, and boy, do they do a fantastic job at that. I can't say enough about these guys. You need to go to their locations and check them out, but they also have plants for sale online. It's securiousplantaholic.com, and right now they have two locations, which is Nazareth, and the other one is Clinton, New Jersey. Please check them out, and you can get more information at curiousplantaholic.com. I'm going to be working with Jenny on some other projects as well, so you will see us kind of creating a vibe and some things going on in Nazareth. We're really going to help kind of revitalize and get some things going on in Nazareth. So if you want to, please check out the Curious Plantaholics in Nazareth. Support local, support us. They support the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on as a sponsor. Never Again Radio episode. I have no clue where we are. Welcome to Never Again Radio, man. How are you?
What's up, dude? I'm doing well.
Nothing. I always thank everybody who drives pretty far. How far of a drive did you have?
So it was about an hour 30 with the traffic. We were kind of doing it right at rush hour here,
yep.
So it's a little bit of a hike for me.
I met you through, I think you reached out to me on social media, and then I was talking to Zach about you, and usually anybody who comes down the pipe of finishers usually has an awesome story, and then we got on the phone, and your angle and kind of what you're doing was a little bit different than what I'm used to with the guys coming on, so I just thought it'd be cool to bring you on and talk about your business and everything you're doing. How did you start out in business or MMA, or like kind of what was the beginning of the road to where you are now?
Yeah, so kind of my start was through jiu-jitsu, and I have been training for a long time. I'm a black belt now. And I bought my business actually at kind of a weird time.
Can you pull it in just a little bit closer?
Yeah. So I bought my business like right in the beginning of COVID, which to everybody that you talk to would seem like the worst possible time to buy a gym. So I have been training at this gym, Paper Street Jiu-Jitsu in Hatboro, since it opened in like 2011 when I was a white belt. I very first started jiu-jitsu. And they were open all the way up until 2020. The owner was getting out of the business because of COVID. He was moving. He, came to me as one of the black belts at the gym, was like, hey, man, would you ever be interested in buying a gym? Now, at the time, I was working full-time, doing my regular 9-to-5 job. And I was like, man, I never really thought about owning a gym. But if the price is right, I would be interested. I taught some classes, and it looked like a good opportunity. So I bought the gym in 2020.
So you weren't even looking into that as a career path or anything at all?
No. So in college, I went to college for exercise science, and I was a personal trainer for a little bit. And
Did you like it?
No, I hated it. It was the worst fucking job. And
What'd you hate about it?
Like training like housewives and grandmas and kids and stuff. I couldn't stand it. I wanted to work with athletes. I wanted to work with jiu-jitsu athletes and football players, and those opportunities are few and far between, especially if you're just working in a small town I was working at like an LA Fitness style gym. So I had thought about owning a gym then, but I wanted to own like a personal training fitness style gym. And this was kind of like I was just getting into jiu-jitsu at the time when I was in college. I started when I was 18, my senior year of high school. So I trained a little bit, but not to the level that I train now.
What was the draw that you wanted to go in to jiu-jitsu?
So I wrestled in high school, and once wrestling was over, I only wrestled for a couple years, and I was like, I want to keep doing something athletic. I loved lifting weights. I loved working out. My whole family was wrestlers. My brother, Alex, who's now a pro MMA fighter and a black belt, he was starting to get into it and kind of thinking about it. We always watched the UFC. He was like, man, I want to take a fight. I want to take a fight.
That's crazy.
So
were you like, do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was a great wrestler. He was an athlete. He was in the Army. So like, he had a lot of stuff that the background that you usually find MMA fighters coming from. And I was like, dude, you should do it. I'm not wrestling anymore. We'll find a gym we can train together.
That's fun.
Yeah. So
older brother, younger brother?
Older. I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. So we couldn't find a jiu-jitsu gym that was close enough to us. There wasn't a lot of jiu-jitsu around. There was only like, the stuff that was in this. We live about 30-ish minutes from Philly. So there was the stuff that was in the city, and there was a couple other gyms. We went to some we didn't really like. So we found a judo gym that was run by all these Russian guys that were pretty wild. So that was like an interesting time.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was our like introduction to, like, we would go to practice and there would be like all these dudes and they would come up to us and they'd be like yelling at us in Russian. We'd be like, we don't fucking know what you're saying. So it was all these dudes speaking Russian. Judo's taught in Japanese. So there was like every language but English being spoken in this gym. So we would go to practice. And honestly, those guys that run that place, Liberty Bell Judo, which is still around, they're awesome. I still talk to them. They're great guys, but that was our intro to it. And then I ended up going to my freshman year of college, and the gym that I now own, that was formerly Paper Street Jiu-Jitsu, opened up when I was a freshman in college. So we both started training there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you were at the gym, and you obviously have everything going on with your brother and whatnot, and then you find yourself at Paper Street. So when that was approached to you, were you kind of like, did you sit, were you like, I don't know, and then like sat on it in your car ride home and then kind of pictured being a gym owner, and then because I've been in situations where somebody presents something to you and you're like, what? And then the more you think about it, then you start seeing all the different avenues and the opportunities. And
so my full-time job, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. I work in veterinary medicine. I'm a veterinary technician.
I was thrown off by that.
Yeah, everybody always is. Yeah. That's not, it's a 90% woman field, and guys that look like me usually aren't the people that do it. So
like the guys who come through, they usually like have been in like the gym and then they work at the gym they're at, or like Thor was really the only one, and I could be wrong, but that I'm remembering is like before Thor left his job, it was really somebody who had like a career and then was doing jiu-jitsu on the side and then kind of grew into that. So when you told me that you were doing the veterinarian stuff, it just kind of stuck out like, oh, like why would you leave that to go to this, or would you dabble in both?
So, I've lived a lot of different careers and gone down a lot of different paths. So like I said, I went to school for exercise science and I did the personal training thing for a bit. And it didn't really work out. So I got an office job. I worked at a staffing agency. And, that's a lucrative career. You can make good money doing that.
Yeah.
I hated sitting, and I've told this story on other podcasts before. I hated sitting behind a desk. And I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. So I wanted to go back to school to do something related to healthcare. So when I was doing that, I was kind of looking at the schools and stuff. And I said to my parents, I was 20 21, about to be 22 at the time. I said, I want to go back to college. I had my associates in exercise science. I said, I think I could get a nursing degree and do that. That seems like I'd be on my feet. I can help people. I like helping people.
Always a good field to get into because they're constantly hiring.
They're constantly hiring. My mom was a nurse.
Same.
They
My mom always pushed me. It's one thing I think I would have ended up where I'm at now because I tried to go to work at hospitals. But my mom would always be like, go nursing. Like always jobs. They pay well. You're overtime. Like there's always a constant need in the healthcare.
Right. Yeah. My dad is a mechanic. He owns his own business. So he was a small business owner. So that was always in the back of my head that, you could own a business and you could make money and
Is that what he did primarily the entire time? Like since he had you?
So when I was a kid, he owned a cab company in Philly, a very large cab company.
Crazy.
Yeah. So the cab company ended up kind of folding due to some business dealings, and he always liked working in the shop when he owned the company. This is a huge company with hundreds of employees, and he just liked working on the cabs, and he was like, screw this, I'm going to start a whole new business, and I'm just going to do what I like doing.
He's probably got crazy stories.
Yeah, oh my God. Dude, his stories about the drivers and stuff, because he grew up with it because it was my grandfather's business.
Yeah.
Like, they started as like a one-cab business right outside Philly in like Glenside area, and grew it to be, it was at one point the largest cab company in Philadelphia. So
that's wild.
Yeah, and it's funny, as you get older, he tells these stories because they got rid of the company when I was a kid, when I was in the first grade. So he's been a mechanic for as long as I've been an adult, my whole life. But now as I'm getting older, you hear more and more of the stories. And especially now with me owning the business, my dad loves that I'm a business owner. And I think that I've never done anything in my life that's made my dad as proud as me owning the business. So he loves talking business with me.
That's cool.
Yeah, which is awesome. I mean, it's made our relationship so much better because I get to go to him for advice all the time on it.
Yeah, and that's I feel like such a rock solid generation to get advice from.
Yeah, and he's such like a level-headed guy. He's not like that classic like boomer guy that's like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and grind your bones and work 80 hours a week. He can be like that a little bit sometimes, but he's much more reasonable. He's like, you should do this, or these investments are worth it, or this is what I've done. And our businesses couldn't be farther apart, but business is business. We were just talking about that with food compared to jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I was thinking about going to school for healthcare. My parents basically said to me, you spent all the money that we have for you to go to college to get your associates. You can either join the Army, because both my brothers were in the Army. You can join the Army, or you can keep working and pay for it yourself. I knew I didn't fucking like my job, so I was like, fuck this, I'm joining the Army. So I joined the...
was your dad in the military? Where did the military come from?
No, so neither of my parents were in the military, and me and both my brothers were in. So it was just, I think my older brother joined because college didn't work out for him, and he just wanted a change in his life, and he joined. And then my middle brother joined because of him, and then I joined because of both of them. So I joined thinking that I would get some college money. I ended up going to like one semester of college. Back when I went back, I ended up going to one semester trying to go to nursing school, and it didn't work out. So then my mom, like I said, she was a nurse before I was even born. She was in nursing, and then from the time I was like in high school, she managed a veterinary hospital. So she was doing that. So she said, while you're going to college, why don't you come work at the vet? Because I'd worked there when I was in high school, just like cleaning up and stuff. Yeah. And she was like, why don't you come work at the vet as a technician? It's healthcare related. I was a medic in the Army, so like I had some healthcare training. And she's like, it's healthcare related. You can work, and it will give you hours that'll work around your college schedule. Because I was commuting to Westchester, which is a brutal fucking commute from where I'm from. So she's like, we'll work around your schedule. So I said, all right. I've been working in a veterinary hospital ever since. This was like 2015. So that's how I got started in that. And then, like I said, I had the training to be a medic in the Army.
Yeah, it was smart because I was going to follow up with what you did in the Army, but then to go the medical background with kind of the already talking about maybe doing the nursing and all that, and then kind of tying it all together. It's like well thought out and like a very good move.
Yeah, so I knew actually when I was in high school, like before any of this, I wanted to be an Army medic, and where I'm from is a very affluent area. So basically, the high school, you go to talk to your guidance counselor, the most useless fucking people in the world, and they were like, the Army's for losers. You need to go to a 4-year college. Around here,
it's such a wild time back then that they pushed that a lot.
I'm not even that. I graduated high school in 2011. Yeah. So like I'm not that old. You know what I mean? This wasn't that long ago. And it was just the area I was from. I can remember like my brother used to come coach wrestling for us, and he was working full time for the military. And sometimes he would come in his uniform, and they told him that it was threatening, and he couldn't wear his uniform in the school. He had to get changed before he could come. So it was just like a thing that they weren't allowed to emphasize in my school. Like some schools they have recruiters come in, especially in low income areas. A lot of the time that happens. Yeah. They weren't allowed to do. They were never allowed in my high school. So that's
crazy.
Yeah, this idiot fucking guidance counselor that I shouldn't have listened to anyway told me, don't join the Army. So I got rid of that idea. I should have just done it when I was 18. I wouldn't have had to pay for college at all, ever.
It's so nuts, guidance counselors and like what they were. I mean, when I went to school, I remember just going there and it was already a waste of time with me even going in. Like, who the fuck is this dude? And I remember them being like, they just looked over a sheet and they were like looking at my grades and they're just like, well, you're probably not going to go to college. And they were like, you're probably going to get into something like, like waste management. And like, we're telling me to like, basically they told me that I should be a garbage man. Like when I was, I was in Catholic school at the time and, that was a time when, and that's why I kind of said it was that, you didn't have options back then. So it was like, hey, it's college or factory worker. My dad was always like, look, you could go do that, but like I did that. And like, it isn't what you think it is. And it's not going to be fun. And don't like take it to be like, I can do this. And then, so I just remember like my experience with a guidance counselor being really crazy when I got older and looking back on that moment, because I never forgot it, because it was just such a weird feeling for someone to say that to me.
And when you're a teenager, I wasn't an impressionable teenager, thankfully. She told me that, and my thing was fuck you, basically. Yeah. My thing was not like, I have to listen to what this lady says.
No,
but
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so crazy to think, because if I had pursued a career in the military, it's like after 20 years, I could have been retired after 20 years and the military, people think of the military as like everybody's just some dude that's going to like ride around in a tank or blow shit up. There's so many jobs in the military. I could have been an x-ray technician. My cousin is a chief in the Navy. He's a nuclear reactor technician. Dude, smart as fuck. Like, what? You're telling me because I was going to be in the military, I was dumb? So now knowing what I know and being an adult, it's such a fucking crazy thing to think that they said that.
Or not even came to your school.
Yeah.
The military. That's because once you said that, it brought me back to like, oh yeah, I remember recruiters coming in and my buddy joined the reserves.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they had conversations.
I was in the Army National Guard. So I mean, it's the same thing. I came back home and I lived my life and I had a normal job and I could have been going to college and doing whatever I wanted to do. And as I say, it was just so ridiculous of a concept. But so anyway, so I ended up doing the veterinary thing. And I eventually worked my way all the way up to I was managing a hospital in Center City when COVID first started. So I was managing a small veterinary hospital, like a 2-doctor practice. So I had some business management experience. And like I said, I kind of had thoughts of opening a gym when I was younger, and it had gone away. And I was teaching jiu-jitsu. I taught a jiu-jitsu class every Thursday for years, from the time I was like a purple belt all the way to the time I was a black belt.
Did you like teaching?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It was what I wanted to do when I was a personal trainer, help people with something that they wanted to learn.
Yeah, now the personal trainer stuff comes back.
All the things that I wanted to do when I was a personal trainer, help people that actually wanted to do something. So you don't really find too many people in a jiu-jitsu gym that are there because they're all there because they want to be there. You find a lot of people in a gym with personal trainers that hate exercising.
Yeah.
They don't want to be there. They want to look better. They want to lose weight. They got broken up with, so they're trying to look better on Instagram for their ex-boyfriend or whatever. They're motivated by reasons that aren't their passion for fitness or their passion for their sport to get better. Most people in a jiu-jitsu gym are there because they want to do jiu-jitsu.
I never thought of it from that perspective of wanting to be a personal trainer in the sense of trying to help somebody out. But you're correct. All the people that you would deal with are people that are there for the wrong reason.
I would have a couple people that were there for the right reason.
Yeah.
Whether any reason is valid it's just, do I want to help you?
I just meant like you said, like somebody's in there and they're like, I'm just here because I got to lose weight because my boyfriend broke up with me. And to me, it's like, okay, well, you're not even going to be here in a couple months because you're not coming in anymore.
My thing with that would be, and you still get this as a jiu-jitsu coach, they would show up for their one personal training session a week and then be mad at you a month later because they hadn't seen any progress. And I'm like, I'm in the gym 7 days a week. I never see you here any other day. Yeah. I'm here 50 hours a week and I never see you. And my jiu-jitsu students will be the same way. Oh man, coach, how come I'm not as good as you? It's like, you know how many hours a week I fucking train? I'm like, I train more in a week than you've trained in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So, people are delusional in a lot of regards. But like I said, most people that come to jiu-jitsu, especially if they've been there, if they get past that first 6 months, which is usually like that sorts out people and they're going to quit in that first 6 months if they're going to quit. Once they get past that, they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I feed off their passion, just like any other job. If you go to your job in a kitchen and all the people are fucking miserable and you guys are making shitty food and you know that the boss is buying the worst quality food and you're just slinging trash out to people, you're miserable.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's any job. And that's why I kind of like to say to people, like, I don't live in jiu-jitsu world. I live in the normal world just like all my students do. So my guys, when they're like, oh man, I couldn't come in because I had to have work, because I had work, I still work 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you can't train because you work 40 hours a week, and I'm still in the military. Like, I'm still serving part-time. I own my business, and I work a full-time job, and I'm married. So any excuse that you're gonna hit with me, besides having kids, which I don't have, but shit, I'm way more busy than most of my fucking friends that have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's wild,
I have
man.
60 kids. They all are members at my gym.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I got to take care of those guys.
How did you end up you went over the list of everything you're doing. How did you pile that on your plate? In what fashion did you do it? And how did you know if you could even keep it all there? It's not an easy task to do what you're doing.
Honestly, I didn't. You know, it is a lot. And it just kind of, I think I was just like, I'm either going to do it or I'm not. And I think that being an athlete and being a veteran and stuff, I've been faced with a lot of challenges in my life, and I was like, what is this but one more challenge in my life? You can either do it or you can complain about it, and I chose to do it. You know, I could have complained that, you know, I wanted somebody to run the gym better because I had my complaints about the way the gym was being run before I bought it. But if all I had done was just complained about the way the gym was being run and never run a gym, I'd just be some asshole fucking complaining, which is what so many people are, and I don't want to perpetuate that. Or, you know, if I was telling my guys, oh man, you can't come to the gym after you work a whole day, I can't believe that. And I was just some dude that gets to teach jujitsu for 2 hours a day and then smoke weed and play video games the rest of the day. It's very easy for me to say that, but I'm coming at them from a relatable standpoint. Maybe I won't always work full time. The hope is that my school gets big enough. But as of right now, you know, I can look at it from their same perspective.
It's hard to, I didn't get to even, I mean, I've been working on this for, I think, since I was 28, so it's like I've probably been working on this for 15 years, and I didn't jump over to doing this full time until 3 years ago, probably, and now I'm going to own a restaurant because this would take so much longer to get to a point where I can financially buy a house and all these other things that I want. So I have, and we talked about this, where I have the freedom and I have the knowledge from doing this. So now I can get into this other project that's going to make more money and be a bigger move to kind of catch me up in life to where I can do things. But like, I'm now choosing to go back to work even more than I am now. And this is the most I've ever worked, but it's like, it's not easy to jump from one thing to another and try and not. I'm also the type of person that if you would tell me that I would make this much money a year with this, I'd still be looking for something else. I like moving around, and I like times where I hit a problem here and I'm like, oh, I'm going to put this on hold and I'm going to go over here. And now I'm working on this. And then when I'm working on that, I'm actually figuring out this problem, and then I can come back over here. I like floating around and doing different things. And I think if you continue to work on one thing really hard, one of the things it gives you is the opportunity to take that knowledge and apply it other places. And I think sometimes people don't do that. And there's so much knowledge that you can learn by trying to do different things. Like, I love that you're doing all those things and getting it all done and being an example to people who are like, oh, well, I can't get here on time. Well, dude, look at my fucking schedule.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing quadruple what you're doing. And then it's crazy sometimes to talk to people and I'm like looking at them like, bro, you're like giving me excuses that we can't get this done. I'm the wrong person to give excuses to. Like, I have no fucking time and I'm doing this. Plus, I'm coming over here and I like how you separate it. Like, sometimes, like, I'll come over here into real life and then be with my friends who aren't doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, all right, well, we going to do this? I don't know. And I'm like, dude, I'm doing all this shit over here plus this. Like, can you even tell me we don't have time to do this?
Yeah, and
that's difficult.
It's funny because my wife will say to me, like, I'll be like, oh, I can't do this, this, and this, and I don't have time for this. She's like, oh, why? I don't understand why you're complaining about it. I'm like, you've been married to me. I'm like, think about the other people we know that aren't like me, that just work their 40 hours a week, and they're bitching about not having time to do stuff. I was like, you're just used to my crazy freaking schedule, and you've been living with it for as long as you've been living with it. But imagine anybody else trying to do the amount of different stuff that I do. And I'm not saying that nobody else could do it, but most people just don't. They choose not to. It would be overwhelming. So, you know, it's cool. I love everything that I do, but I will say that, like, I'm getting to the point where I'm in my last couple months of being in the military still, and with how big the business has grown and how much I'm doing and still trying to compete actively.
Well, let's hang there for a little bit. What was it like for you to get into that business, and how did you grow it?
Yeah, so going back to the beginning, I guess, where we bought the business. So I bought the business at the peak of COVID, and who was buying a business, especially a gym, especially a jiu-jitsu gym. There was no way. I mean, I guess I could have been like that guy in Jersey, that Attila's gym, where he was just
whatever
like,
happened to that dude?
That guy, I don't know. My political views probably don't align with that guy's. So, I was like, all right, well, I'll buy the gym. And I could buy the gym for this price that seemed so reasonable. And I will say, I'm not the only owner of my gym. I 50-50 split it with a partner, made El the best. He's the man. He was my coach. He was a black belt long before I was. And me and him really play well off of each other. We bring two different skill sets to the table. We still take each other's jiu-jitsu classes. We're best friends. We hang out all the time. He corners me for all my matches. But so he was a huge help in this process too. I didn't do this alone. And I will say, like, balancing all that stuff, I have a great support network. My wife's awesome. My friends are awesome. My teammates are awesome. My brother's great. I've surrounded myself with people that are helpful, that allow me to live this lifestyle.
Yeah, you almost have to.
You have 100%. You need a support system. Anybody that tries to do all this stuff on their own, you crack, dude, so easily. And I've watched so many people try and do that, and then they just give up so quickly. They're like, how do you sustain this? Well, the sustainable part is alleviate. Like, you have to be able to spread that work out. But anyway, so I bought the gym. And instantly, I was getting out of the Army at the time. I did my 6-year commitment to the Army National Guard. So I was getting out, and I thought I was going to be out. And I was like, all right. Well, my wife decided, she was an insurance agent. She decided she wanted to be a police officer. Out of nowhere. 28-year-old, tiny little woman, wasn't in the military or anything. All this stuff happened in the news with police officers. And I've told this story on other podcasts before, too. And I think it's one of the coolest things my wife's ever done. She said basically the same stuff that I was just saying. I could bitch about it, or I could be part of the solution to the problem. So she said that people like me, regular people, aren't police officers. She said, it's always the same 21-year-old guy with a Punisher skull tattooed on his arm that was in the Army that wants to be a police officer. She's like, I want to be a police officer. I'm completely different than everybody else that wants to do it. So she decided to be a police officer. She went to the police academy. She wasn't going to have health insurance if she went to the police academy, because she was giving up her very good job at an insurance agency. We weren't married at the time. So I said, let me join the Air Force after I got out of the Army and extend my contract in the military. We'll get married. And we're engaged at the time. I was like, oh, we'll get married and you'll have benefits again. So the Air Force was like, all right, cool, you're joining. You got to go on 4 months of orders to learn how to be in the Air Force. So I had to move down to Texas for 2 months and then to Florida for 2 months, right when I bought my business.
Oh my God. And COVID.
And COVID. So right in the first year of owning my business, I wasn't there for 4 months. So my partner had to run the business while I was gone. Yeah.
Well, at least you guys are close, so
yeah.
you at least knew your situation.
Every day he was texting me. We have a camera in the gym. I was watching class. I'm like, oh, this guy's showing up only 3 times a week. What do you think about that? I'm very hyper fixated on things, like almost to a fault. And he'd be like, dude, it's okay. It's okay. So we chose not to rebrand the gym yet. We were still Paper Street Jiu-Jitsu. We hadn't switched over to being Saga yet. And then we knew when I came back, we were really going to kick it into gear and change the name. And we did a ton of renovations to the gym. It doesn't even look like it used to look like an abandoned warehouse with some mats thrown in it. Yeah. And now it looks like an actual professional gym.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work to do something like that, especially with
of work.
Your wife becoming a police officer and you.
My life for the last 3 years has been nothing but hectic.
I'm like, oh, this guy's brain seems to match yours. Yeah. Like just projects. I like someone who's always constantly not afraid to take something on or to look at something and be like, no, I'll accomplish that. And be like, some people would see, all right, well, you got to go back for 4 months, and then they would not do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and even in my job in veterinary medicine, the company I work for owns 200 hospitals throughout the country. I've changed hospitals 3 times in the last 3 years. Yeah. So I was working close to where I'm from in Horsham. So I had like a 10-minute drive to work. They promoted me. I was managing this hospital in Center City. That's like an hour drive from me. Then when I came back from being on those orders, they were like, oh, we're going to move you again to somewhere in Delaware County, which is over an hour away from my house. So I was driving an hour out away for work every day for my 9 to 5, driving an hour back, then going right to the gym. Now I'm thankfully back to working 15 minutes from my house, which has made my life
gotta be
infinitely easier. Yeah. And now, like I said, I'm in my last couple months of being in the military. But throughout all of this, we just grew the business by honestly just persistence. We believe in our product. I believe that we teach the best jiu-jitsu in our area. We have the best facility in our area. Our coaches are awesome. It's not just me and my partner that teach classes. We have a bunch of great black belts that teach the classes. And we've just built this culture that, I think when people walk in there, I say to them, why wouldn't you want to be here? I love being in my gym. It's the coolest group of dudes I know. You know what I mean? Like, those guys are great. I walk in there and I'm happy to be there every time. And the jiu-jitsu training's awesome. And now we're starting to see people come from other gyms and they're like, man, what you guys have built here is, especially if they had seen what it was before, they're like, what you guys have built here is insane.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're kind of, like some things are kind of starting to shed off with like the military and whatnot. Is your main focus to now, like, what are you going to do with that time? Because you're obviously going to fill it up. Are you going to go more towards the school? Are you looking to do other things outside of the school? Are you looking to do other business? Like, when you start having more time, where's it going to go?
Growing the school is my main focus. Yeah. So my job, my ideal world would be that veterinary medicine is my full-time job right now, and the school is it takes a full-time amount of attention, but is my part-time job. I would like eventually in the next couple of years for that to be the inverse. I would like to still keep working in veterinary medicine because it is rewarding and I do like it, but I would like to go down to doing that part-time, the school being full-time, and grow the school to, we were talking about, we met each other through Finishers. I was around when Finishers was small, when they were in a strip mall, and now they're at a 10,000 square foot facility with 250 members, multiple employees. I think that we could be that for my area, and it's just growing there. And, I'm still competing actively. We touched upon it a little bit. I was one of the first Finishers champions. I'm a very active competitor, but as I just turned 30 this past year, as I'm getting older, the competition's going to roll back too, and that's going to give me more time. So now I'm starting to coach my crop of guys. One of my guys just won his first super fight at Finishers. I got another guy that's
fun.
Yeah, I got another guy that's doing his first one on the same card as me next weekend. So I'm starting to switch into coaching mode a little bit, and I don't think I'll ever stop competing because I love it. But as I dial that back a little bit, the coaching kind of like part of my story, I think, is going to start a little bit more.
With the coaching?
Yeah, with the coaching my guys that want to do super fights. Because I've just had to carry the flag of my brand. It's been pretty much me and my brother, but my brother's more of an MMA guy than a jiu-jitsu guy. But I've had to carry that flag. I was the only competitor out of my gym for years and years and years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could tell by just even talking to you, like, and you start, you peel off some of the other things you're doing with the personal training and all that. It only sounds like coaching would eventually be what you would be doing just because of your different skill sets you're taking. And obviously you enjoy the teaching. And, one of the early things in the beginning of the interview was how much you liked and wanted to do the personal training, but it just wasn't the right fit. And now it seems like you've done a lot of the hard work. Like you said, you carried the flag, and then now you're getting to a point where, you can grow the school and be a bigger asset in a different way other than competing, because now you have these guys that you're giving your skill set to who can now go to Finishers and stuff and start competing for the school instead of you. Yeah,
and we kind of touched on this before when I was like, why wouldn't I why my guys, they complain if they're like, I have to go to work and whatever. And I'm like, well, man, I got to do all the same things. Now as a coach, when my guys are like, oh man, you don't know what it's like to train for that.
Yeah.
I was the Finishers champion. I've competed at 2300 arena a bunch of times. I've been on Fight to Win, 7 times. Like, I've done all this stuff, man. There's not something that you're telling me, unless it's like win a world, I'm not like a world champion level athlete, but unless it's something like that, if in jiu-jitsu, I've probably done it. You know what I mean? So
where does the competition come from? Because it obviously sounds, your brothers in the military and everything. I mean, where does that need for the competition come from?
So, like I said, I wrestled when I was in high school, but my brothers were like record-holding wrestlers at our school. They were like these prodigious wrestlers, and I was an awful high school wrestler. Absolutely awful. I didn't wrestle when I was a kid. I was like this long-haired kid that liked to smoke weed and do stupid shit with my friends, and I wasn't an athlete. So I think coming up, I started later than everybody else that I knew that was good athletes did, but I liked it. I'm very competitive in most things in my life. And once I was done high school wrestling, I'm like, man, I wasn't that good at that, but I liked it a lot. Like, I liked the training for it almost as much as I liked competing. And I liked having a goal, you know what I mean? So I even do that now with the school. I'll be like, oh man, I have to get 10 more students or whatever. So it was just constant goal setting, and it just kept me consistent.
I love constant goal setting.
Yeah. It just kept me consistent in the gym. And I was like, all right, well, if I have something to train for, I'll just stay. I'll just keep going. I'll keep going. And I tell people all the time, my students this especially, I've never taken a break from jiu-jitsu in the time I've done it. The longest break I ever took from jiu-jitsu was to go to basic training for the Army. I've never taken a break. I'm always there. And I think that part of that has been I've just always competed since I was a blue belt. I've always just, I would line up competitions. Like, I talked about this a little bit. I made a social media post the other day, which I'm sure might have irked some people, but I was like, a lot of guys nowadays, they get hurt and they're like, oh, I'm not competing for 6 months. I've had a couple losses recently, and next weekend I'm competing against the guy who fought in jiu-jitsu matches. I'm competing against a guy who fought in Bellator on Saturday night, and then a guy who fought in the UFC on Sunday. 2 back-to-back. I'm like, dude, I will take any matches that people give me because I just love to fucking do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's so intriguing by just even talking to you is that it's not that no's not an option, but you can genuinely feel from how you're talking that you will literally you're obsessed with competition.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I like, people are always like, man, how do you compete so much? And I know a couple other guys that are on the same, kind of like wavelength with it as me. I'm like, because I just don't say no to anything.
Yeah,
I don't have a reason to.
Is it personal competition that you think it is, or because
Like
it's
I
not
said,
team oriented? Because
No.
wrestling's kind of single.
No, I think it's just like, I like now for me, it's part of like, I do
Because it's a school.
Yeah, I do it for the brand. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It's
You're repping.
Yeah, I got to put myself out there. People see me out there and they're like, oh man, Kyle's doing well. Or, even just like putting our name out there. Every time a Saga Jujitsu rash guard's on the Finishers Instagram that has 10,000 followers, people see the name. So
Yeah.
And I talk to my guys about it. I'm like, even if you go out there and lose, I could care less. Like, if you guys are trying, like, it's good for the brand.
Yeah. Did you develop the brand and like come up with the name and like the idea of it? Because this all started what I'm doing from an apparel company. So like, I had created this thing and it was my baby and we branded it and the logo has changed over the years and I could sell nothing. I have created t-shirts and sold none and I don't care because I love creating and I'm obsessed with like the brand making and the logos and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, were you a part of all that?
Yeah, so that's in my business partnership, that's pretty much all me, is like all the branding. And so I came up with the Saga.
That's fun. I love it.
Yeah, I came up with the Saga Jujitsu name.
Where'd it come from?
So Saga is like, the word saga means like an epic story, right? So we thought, like, when I was coming up with it, I was like, everybody in jiu-jitsu has this story, right? Whether it's, the way that I started or the way that we have a guy that's a doctor that got attacked by one of his patients and that's why he wanted to start doing jiu-jitsu.
That's great.
That's a cool fucking story.
Yeah.
So everybody's got a story, but story jiu-jitsu doesn't sound very good. Saga sounded cool.
That's cool. And it's true because when I started bringing, like I said to Zach one day, I'm just going to start bringing the guys on that like will come up and buy burgers from me and like Jimbo and all these just different guys that I have these like moments with. And then I brought one on and I think early on it might have even been Renee and everybody that comes on is usually just a business. And when the jiu-jitsu guys started coming on, everyone's got a story on how the path started. That's brilliant and really awesome branding that you did that because I could bring, like, when you hit me up, I was just like, yeah, like any jiu-jitsu person can hit me up and I could literally bring them in here and everybody's got a story and it's worthwhile telling in an hour.
Yeah, so our thing is like write your saga, right? So like
this is really cool.
Yeah, the day you come into our gym, you start writing your jiu-jitsu saga, right?
Yeah.
So like that's like our whole thing. So people come in and they're building that story every day that they come in.
Were you creative like this before that, or was this kind of the first time you had an outlet?
No, like I was not a creative person, and I think that I just needed the right outlet to do it. So
100%.
All our logo and branding, we came up with the idea for the snake. I mean, you've probably seen some of our stuff. Everything has that red and black cobra on it.
I love that.
So like we used to kind of like, me and my partner used to fuck around and say like we were like Cobra Kai. He was like John. He was like Kreese, and I was like Johnny when we would go to tournaments.
But it's fun when you're just
I mean?
starting out and like you don't know really what you're doing and you're kind of just building it, but you want to build a presence. And like in the early days, I remember like all my friends would just like rock my Never Again gear, and I get texts like, yo, saw some dude in Easton rocking your hat walking across the street. Like you're building essentially like this small community of people like fucking with your brand. And and not a lot of people get to, and the people that are trying to do it or have done it will understand this, but it's really cool when you see people fucking with your shit, or when you see that the rash guard that you came up with and created and put it all together, and it is on the Finishers thing, and regardless of win or lose, it's like it's so cool to be the person that came up with the idea and you want other people to be into it, and then when a community comes around it and you see it fucking grow, like it becomes very addicting to keep growing it because it's something that you created from nothing.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the things that I got from the Finishers guys. I looked at their stuff, and so many jiu-jitsu gyms, they come up with a logo and they never change it. It's like this same stupid fucking triangle that's printed on everything that has, whatever their shark or, what octopus or whatever animal, because I feel like every jiu-jitsu gym always ends up with one of these aggressive animals as their logo. So, they put it on there, but they never change it. So the cobra is our symbol, and we use the cobra, but we've changed it so many times. We've done like summer ones where the cobra's got sunglasses on, he's in crazy colors, and we've done like an American one where he's in the Liberty Bell, and the Finishers guys were like, dude, people will keep buying it, but they won't keep buying it if you use the same thing over and over again.
Now,
dude, they said that to me and that clicked, and I'm like, that's basically what every brand is. The Nike swoosh doesn't change, but you buy a million different versions of it.
Yep.
So that's been our thing, and
that's really
it's worked
cool.
out really well for us.
When I first met Zach early on, when he was doing apparel, we had started working on apparel together, and I was helping him out with different artists that could get stuff drawn for them. And I remember one of the ones we did was like the 10th planet, like Earth or whatever it was for their school, and we decided to do it with like Ryu, like throwing the fireball, and it was just like Zach was always so open to like completely just doing what you said, where it's like you just change different stuff. But I mean, I always looked at it where I was like, I can't sell you the same fucking even like sweatshirts. Like I have a sweatshirt that we would change the color and then it would just change the date. But then like I had 6 sweatshirts back there, and I'm like, no one is going to keep buying the same fucking sweatshirt. And then like I switched it up, and this year I ripped off the North Face logo allegedly, and it sold so like. But then I was like, oh man, I forgot what it's like, because sometimes you do get stuck creatively, and it's something that people should pay attention to that are listening or trying to do something, where sometimes I get stuck in my own ideas and I don't change enough, and then I'm like, yo, you need to pull back. And then like when I wash that out and let go of what my identity was with the brand for the last 3 years with the studio logo, which I needed to do because everything was changing that I was doing, and I went with that North Face vibe, it pops so hard. And then like now I'm like, I hit my buddy up and I'm like, yo, let's do this. And then like we came up with this other idea, and I'm like, yo, that's gonna hit hard. And like then it's fun again. Like if you sit stagnant, you start feeling stagnant, and it does ripple into like how the business is carried. Like if you have a really cool t-shirt, like that could take you through a couple of months of just like really getting a community together.
And that's how it is for us too. Like some of my friends, and even like the best, in my opinion, the best thing is like when my friends, like girlfriends, want to wear my stuff, because that's like, dude, people are gonna look at that, you know, they're gonna see them wearing it, and it's like, but my friends that don't do, when I knew that we had cool stuff, when my friends that didn't do jiu-jitsu wanted to wear it, and like we'll just take stuff that we like we did like we do seasonal stuff, so we did crew neck sweatshirts one year, and one of my coaches is super into like black metal music, so we did a pentagram with the snake in it, like a, you know.
But that's what's fun, is you can move it around, and if you're comfortable enough to do that, like I remember I've taken a couple jiu-jitsu lessons, and like I do want to do it. I just haven't found that pocket of time that complements how I want to do it and all that. But there was a time when I wasn't even thinking about doing it, and I have finisher rash guards in the back just because they were so dope. And I remember Zach texting me and be like, yo, you do know that these are rash guards and like you won't be using them? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm supporting the school and these are really fucking cool. Like me to be buying rash guards that I've never even put on, like tells you something about how they were being designed.
Yeah, I have one friend who always, and every time I get new stuff, he's like, dude, you got to put one aside for me. He trained a little bit, saying kind of same thing. Like he's done it a little bit and he knows the deal, but he's like, I like it. He's like, hey, I like supporting you, but he's like, the stuff's just fucking cool.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, and people do come up to him at the bar and they ask him about it and stuff. And
it's like the other thing too is like, which I'm sure it's good for you, is like, that's such an awesome creative dump to get outside of like all of the seriousness of like the military and your full-time job and like the school, but like to live in that branding, like it's a nice fucking getaway to just have a really good creative pocket.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the job, and it's one of the parts of the job you don't even think about when you buy a gym.
No.
You know, I was always like, oh man, I wish we had cooler t-shirts when it used to be the old gym. And I was like, you know, I wish we had cooler t-shirts. But again, if I had done nothing about that, it would have been lame. So it comes back full circle. If I was always shitting on the t-shirts that we used to have when we were the old brand, and all of a sudden I got it, and all I did was just make the same t-shirt 20 times, I would have been the same guy I was complaining about.
I like the mentality of that. And I don't think about how much I actually do that. Because, I mean, this whole business started from a conversation I had with my brother, and at the time it was skateboarding clothes was leaving the baggy era, so like I think it's kind of going back now, but like there was this era where
jeans are coming back.
I never got into Jankos. I liked my big baggy shit, but my dad wouldn't let me wear Jankos at all. So like when that was going on, I remember saying to my brother, like, because the online wasn't the same way it was, so like you couldn't just go get whatever the fuck you wanted all the time, like, so
you had
it was
to wait for your CCS catalog.
So like, or like, you know, there was a couple of online companies that I bought from, but it wasn't like how it is now, where like if something doesn't fit, you can send it back. So like I called my brother, and like I was trying to pass time because it was right when I got sober, and I was like, fuck man, like, what am I going to do? And then like I was bitching about clothing, and I was like, man, I should just start a clothing company. And my brother's like, well, why don't you? And I was like, well, if I did that, then I would have clothing that I wanted and what I wanted to wear. And then I was just like, well, why couldn't I take something and define myself through it creatively? And then I like this light bulb went off, and I was like, yo, I'm just going to do that. And then I remember just being so hyper focused on like, yeah, I don't gotta fucking buy these t-shirts that don't fit because everybody wants shit tighter. And I'm glad I did, because the clothing got so crazy. We're like, even now, it's like, I don't even want to look for jeans. It's like, I just bought the parachute pants and cut them into cargo shorts, because that's what we used to rock when we were in fucking high school, when we'd go skateboarding, because we would go to the Army and Navy, because it was the only place that had different clothing. And like, this whole thing started because I was just tired of bitching about shit that I had control, because
And I can tell,
essentially you have control over it if you want to create it.
Yeah, and I can tell, it's talking to you about this, you were complaining about the food scene here. You're basically doing the same thing that I did. If you had just complained about the food scene and said food in Nazareth sucks, but you don't fucking make any food, then all you are is fucking complaining. But now you're out here slinging food. You built it all from a small level, just slinging it at finishers, and now you're doing what you're doing, and you're trying to expand that. You're basically doing what I did with the gym.
Yeah.
I bitched about it. I found a solution to it, and then grew it.
Yeah, it's hard to find in small towns.
If more people did things like that,
it'd be way different.
It would be a different scene.
And what's funny, because when you point it out, like, I'll talk to people, and like, the restaurant owners that I talk to, they're like, joking around. They're like, dude, don't do it. You got to be fucking crazy. But I tell everybody, I'm like, I'm tired of it. I wanted somebody. I told people for the last 10 years to just sell a cheeseburger. Sell a cheeseburger in this town. There's a hot dog joint up the road. They print money. It's a family-ran business, and everybody goes there. There's a line out the door if you go there for lunch, and all they sell is hot dogs. I'm like, you could do the same thing with hamburgers. And I kept telling everybody, do a hamburger spot. I wanted somebody else to do it, to just do it. And then nobody would fucking do it. And eventually I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of it. And I've had people be like, why are you doing it in Nazareth? Why are you doing it in Nazareth? And I'm like, all my friends and family are here, and we have nothing. We have 50 fucking pizza spots. Yeah, you can get something different at each, but like, if it's a real problem if like, after this, when you go, I didn't eat all day, and I have to find something to eat, and there's nowhere to fucking go. So it's like, now it's just a constant problem. And I'm like, if it's a problem for me, it's a problem for the whole fucking town. And then if you stop and look at it and be like, all right, well, if there isn't anywhere for anybody to eat, and I would create somewhere to somebody to eat, and I see the ice cream store having a fucking line out in the middle of winter, there's obviously people here with money. Why wouldn't someone do it? And then it just comes down to, I don't think people do it correctly. I mean, we had that conversation, but also, like, now it feels good because people are like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm doing it for Nazareth, because no one does. Everyone comes in here and they want everybody.
You're doing it for the brand. Like we just talked about,
Yeah.
You're doing it to improve. And that's why I kept my gym in Hatboro. I could have opened my gym anywhere, or I could have moved it or whatever. I'm from Horsham, which is the next town over from where my gym is. And people come in there with their kids and they'll be like, oh, blah, blah. And I'll be like, I went to high school here. Like, this is, if they come in with their kids and they're
super thankful, probably. Like, they're like, hey,
oh, that's
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah.
Or like, I'm connected to the community. I've lived there my whole life. I have no designs on leaving. I like where I live. Like
I gave up on leaving. I gave up.
But I
tried.
I think, I have friends that live in New York or DC or wherever, and they're like, oh man, how do you still live at home and you still see people? I'm like, I like where we're from. I could have left. I've lived other places for the military.
Same.
I lived other places for the military. I have a lucrative enough a career. I work for a company that has businesses all over the country.
The amount of shit you're doing, you could go do whatever you want anywhere.
And I could go do it. And my wife
could take her career anywhere.
Right. My wife's family's from there. We get along well with our families. Our friends are here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to leave.
It's weird when you leave.
Why can't I just make the place better? Why do I have to leave?
Yeah. I like that too, because like, when I left originally, I left too late because I didn't go to college. So when I left, it was in like my mid-20s, and I couldn't find my friends anywhere else because they were already home. And I was like, I can't, like, it was so hard to build those relationships again because they're people I knew since I was 10. So it's like, when I tried to leave, I got pulled back, and then like, I'd always be like, oh man, I need to go out to LA to do all this shit. And then when we had a couple viral videos pop with the podcast, the first time it happened, and like, we were talked about on like Barstool, and it was everywhere and like all the shit, and I was like, I don't gotta go anywhere. I'm like, I can make fucking noise from this dumb basement and be on fucking Tiger King. And then like, when that shit happened, when all this stuff started happening, I'm like, I don't gotta go anywhere. Then my relationship with my parents, I paid attention to differently, where like, I started getting along with my father after years of fighting, and then I was just like, oh, it's cool to be here. All right, well, I'm here now. So like, what are we gonna do? We gonna go spend money and bitch about how Nazareth has nothing, and then constantly every year be like, oh, well, you could shut the block down and you could take over this town. And when I moved into this town, I was like, no one's doing anything. I can take over. And I said that, and now 5 years later, I'm taking real estate on the corner, and I could technically just start taking over the fucking town. And I'm like,
I think about that all the time because my business when I was a shithead teenager is the place I used to get the homeless people to buy beer for me from the bar next door, and we'd drink them out back. And I'm like, man, how far I've come
it's weird
to now
when you
own
stay
this
in
business.
town. Yeah.
And it's like, I think about this too we keep talking about the finishers guys because it's our connection to each other, but they made Bethlehem a destination where who cared about this area? Not in an offensive sort of way, but in a jiu-jitsu sense. This area, I live 30 minutes from Philly. I would rather come out here than go to most jiu-jitsu gyms in the one of the biggest cities in the entire country.
Yeah, for the two,
that says something.
For them to make it a destination point, and what was crazy was watching it grow. Because when I first started, and then I look back at how long it's been. Like I remember, I was doing a podcast with Zach and JM, and I was slinging cheesesteaks, and a half a block away they were in the smallest place they were in. I think they were living out of it, and they were right next door to Jimmy John's. And then they went from there to the Plaza one where they were over by
Redner's.
By Redner's. And then I was with Zach and JM when we walked to school, and I was like, this place is fucking crazy big. Yeah. And then for them to take that over and that location, have 2 parking lots in the middle of a neighborhood, it's not even in an area where like you got to be annoyed to pull up and park, and you know what I mean? Like it's just to even find that and then pull the trigger on that, and then to start seeing those guys on Fight Pass and TV and Grace and Thor, and it was crazy to watch all that shit happen.
It's crazy to watch for somebody like me that's been in jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu's just exploded so much. I put up this post on Instagram the other day that was like, I've been in this game since when you used to do super fights, and they weren't really all that super. It would be like you would be in this dingy little fucking cage in somebody's gym. They would be cooking empanadas on a grill in the gym. You could buy illegal beers out of the fridge in their gym. There was flow grappling, but there was, nobody was on it. You had to live in California or something to be on the events that were broadcast on it. Now I've been on there like 20 times because these guys are putting on events. Fury's putting on events in Philly. I've been on some other stuff that's on there, but it had to grow, and it's been really cool to be a part of that because my guys that come into it now and they get to be on flow grappling as a blue belt in their first match, I'm like, dude, this is not how it was. I couldn't hype up my matches to people. I couldn't be like, oh, you want to come sit in this dingy, dank gym in Reading? No thanks.
I remember going to early finishers, and it was like something out of 8 Mile where like you're in this fucking basement, and there's just like the energy at those, I don't get to watch them because I'm selling food in the parking lot now, but like the early days when I would just go there and take pictures and was just learning jiu-jitsu by watching it with the guys, it was just like there's so much energy, and it was so raw, and fucking for them to take that, capture it, brand it, and now they got like the fucking, like the last event I was at was cooking, and I was taking a piss.
I saw you.
And the one dude in the bathroom was like, oh man, like I hope they put me on. And I'm like, because I don't look at it the way you guys do, because it's just my friend's business, and I know Jimbo and everybody's super nice to me, and thankfully they've adopted me as this weird guy who's not even in the sport, who's just doing all this shit with them. But like to hear other people be like then you think about it from your perspective, but like what they did is like, man, for somebody who can go over there and get on flow grappling by competing, or if they have something that, where it's a wild, exciting moment, like that is getting clipped out by Quentin before you guys even leave.
Yeah, man.
It's wild.
It is, and it's the platform, dude. Like, Fight to Win doesn't really come around anymore, but like, dude, to get to compete for, I don't know if you ever watched one of their events, but to get to compete for Fight to Win, especially when they first started coming around, you got to walk down that ramp and have a professional production and screens going off and your walkout song, and there's all these people and they're banging on the mat, and you're in the 2300 arena. Dude, who else? My other 30-year-old friends that are still reminiscing about their high school football days don't get to do shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's dude, it's such a cool experience. And even finishers being in their gym and stuff, it's a little bit more underground. It's underground from the outside, though. To people in the jiu-jitsu world, finishers is a big deal, man. It's like some guys will try and be like, oh, you're on this local show or whatever. Dude, there was a guy at the last finishers that came from Japan to do it.
Yeah,
like,
he bought a burger.
Yeah, dude. I'm competing against, like, I've gotten to compete in Atlantic City. Like, I've gotten to do so much cool stuff through jiu-jitsu that I never would have thought that I got to do. But coming from when I first started doing it all the way up until the way it is now is so radically different. And I can't wait to see, like, my guys that are competing now where it is in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, where do you see all of this going for you? Like, where do you see the school and everything and competing and like kind of putting a bow on all this to wrap it up? Like, where do you want all this to go? Because it seems like I'm glad I got to pick through it and you went through everything, but it seems like things are kind of shelling off. And in the next 5 years, it's going to be a straight line to just Saga Jujitsu. Like, where do you want that to go?
Yeah, man. I think that the end game for me is the school being the best that it can possibly be. I want a team of competitors. We were just saying, I put up a thing the other day, and it was like, dude, it was such a cool moment for me to see. I put up a graphic of our rash guards, and they were Saga competition team rash guards.
Yeah.
So like having the Saga competition team is like my dream. And dude, don't get me wrong. I love my students that come in. Like I said, that guy that was a doctor that got attacked, dude, him learning jiu-jitsu is much more valuable than any of us that compete.
Yeah.
That might save his life one day, or my guys that are cops that I train, or even my people that just come in and they get in shape. We have a guy that's, lost like over 150 pounds from doing jiu-jitsu. Dude, they just have to have some driving reason. It circles back to
that's
that.
got to be cool for you with going back to the personal trainer stuff too.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. Anybody, like I said, most of the time they want to be there. But my goal is to have this competition team, to have a whole bunch of other regular guys, to just be surrounded by people that love jiu-jitsu as much as I do. Because like I said, I feed off that energy, dude. If I come in, like last night we had our competition class, I had 30 people on the mats killing each other. I'm getting ready for competitions. We got other guys. We have guys that come from other gyms to visit us just to get ready for stuff. Like just being surrounded by that and just watching it grow. So, I mean, I'm at where I want to be in terms of who I'm surrounding myself with and where the gym is it going to. It's just getting to that end game. But I don't think there ever is an end game. And I think if you ask Zach, who's somebody that I look up to in this game, I think he'd say the same thing. They're not stopping. He didn't open that 10,000 square foot gym and be like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
They can keep doing the events. They got the flow deal. Now they do one a month. Like, dude, there is no end game. It's just keep growing and keep surrounding yourself with the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Keep doing all the things that we're doing. Just do them to a bigger, better next level. And I think that Saga, I would love to. They have 2 gyms. I would love to have 2, 3 gyms and spread this out and be able to do it in other areas because there's definitely still areas that need jiu-jitsu. So
that's dope, man. I never know how these podcasts are going to go. I don't podcast as much as I used to because I'm learning to open that business. But this was fucking an awesome conversation.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed this. You are more than welcome to come here anytime. Everything that you're doing is matched up to how crazy I am, and I love people who put a full plate. I would love to have your brother on and just pick into this family as much as I can. If you want to bring anybody on from the school or you want to promote ever competing with Saga, and we can line it up and you can get promotion out of coming on here, cut some reels, or you just want to put somebody up on from the school like I do with finishers, the door is wide open. I appreciate you driving all the way up here. I want to close this out because I do want you to be able to go over to Thor's and train tonight. I want to close with let everybody know how they can follow your social media, get a hold of you if they're from your area, if they want to follow you, if they want to go to the school, they want to get the apparel. How can anyone get a hold of what you're doing?
Yeah, man. So basically, we're everywhere. We're online, sagabjj.com. We're on Instagram at sagabjj. If you want to check me out, it's guillotine.season on Instagram. You can check me out. I'll be on Ground Zero Grappling on April 15th next weekend. I'll be on Finishers on April 16th, the following day right after that. And then April 23rd, I'll be on the First Valley Submission Series. If you want to see my face in jiu-jitsu, I'm out there a whole lot. If you guys are looking for private lessons, hit me up. If you guys are interested in joining the school, hit the school page up. Anything else, feel free, reach out.
Cool. I'll have all that stuff linked out in the info in the YouTube. If you're a first-time listener, first-time watcher, it's Never Again Studio. Everything is on the main website. You can watch video there. You can listen to the audio there, iTunes and Spotify. I believe you can start uploading Spotify videos. I think they finally let somebody else do it besides Rogan. So if that's the case, a lot of this will be there, and I'll probably be moving a lot there. Subscribe to the YouTube. There's a lot of stuff coming on with that. In my Instagram link, that's how you get to the apparel. Dynamite Screen Printing sponsors the podcast. He runs my drop shipping. If you need anything with apparel, hit him up. Thank you so much for coming on, man, and the door is wide open.
Happy. Thanks, man.
That went really well.
Never Again Radio. Get into it, brother.